Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show I read a lot of comic books and I'll let you know what I thought about them, and we always start with a pick of the week. And this week's pick of the week, Precious Metal, issue number 2 from Image Comics, written by Darcy Van Polgees, artwork by Ian Bertram, coloring by Matt Hollingsworth, and Hassan Osman El Howe on the lettering. And then we have, I believe it's Ben Dyer, yes, on the logo and the design work. This book is fantastic, and in fact, this was a very difficult pick for Pick of the Week because there are like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 books that are worthy of the Pick of the Week, but Precious Metal gets me. The reason why it gets me is because the artwork in this book is so dense and rich, and so is the story. We add so much more complexity, not just to the world building, but to the narrative as well. This story in issue 2 is already taking twists and turns that I did not see coming, and they're also cementing further its connection to Little Bird, which was like my favorite comic book the year it came out. Little Bird is one of the best comics of the last 25 years. I think it's one of the best comics of all time. This is a prequel of sorts to Little Bird, but you don't have to have read Little Bird to understand this, but it might help just kind of knowing a little bit more about this world. Great science fiction concepts, incredibly detailed, rich artwork. It's like inspired a little bit by Mobius, maybe some Otomo in there as well. The coloring is absolutely amazing, each choice, and the story. It's got thematic relevance, it's got character depth, but like I said, also taking twists and turns in that narrative. I don't know where this book is going, but I am all here for it. Precious Metal, this is peak level comics right there. Read that. Let me know what you think. After that, the runner-up, and a very close runner-up, is Ice Cream Man issue number 40. So this is Decompression and a Wreck Part 2. We don't usually have continuing stories in Ice Cream Man, and we do here of a sort. In the last issue, it was about this 18-wheeler who hits this car full of a family. And it's like it's about storytelling decompression, how even a quick moment like a car accident can be stretched out over 20-something pages in a comic book, right? And so what we did in that last issue was slow all that down, go into the lives, the tragic lives of all of the people in that car that were going to die, right? Now we get the same story from the other perspective. We get it from the truck driver's perspective. We find out more about his life, his buddy's life, who is his partner on the road. Such a great issue, really freaking good. And the way that, okay, so the last issue, 39, was rather depressing. It really, really was. But this issue is still depressing, but at the same time, it's got that poignant sense of hope in the midst of despair and bleakness and futility, right? And that's something that I love about Ice Cream Man. A lot of people could read this book and just be like, what a sad, morose book that is. But it's actually more than that. Through that despair, we see the tinge of hope and optimism at times in Ice Cream Man. And I love it. I'm loving this book so much, and it doesn't come out super often. It's like 4 or 5 times a year, but it's always worth it, and it's always one of the best books of the year. The coloring, the artwork, everything is so cool and innovative. This book never ceases to be innovative, shocking, and resonant. Ice Cream Man number 40, a very solid almost pick of the week. Then we got Transformers issue number 10, another fantastic issue of Transformers. And let me tell you something. For a book that seemed like it was really going to take its time in introducing us to all of these characters and the origins of this new vision of Transformers, which is still firmly rooted in the past, but very much modern and very much its own thing, it has really elevated up a lot, like in the last few issues. We got more characters, we got bigger things happening, and the biggest thing to happen yet is happening in the pages of issue number 10. Daniel Warren Johnson is able to continue to ratchet up the tension and the scale and scope of this book while also maintaining the core sense of those characters and the war for Cybertron that has now landed on Earth, how it's affecting Earth, how it's affecting the people involved, how it's affecting the Autobots involved, and the Decepticons are just nasty, mean, and evil. And it's awesome. Transformers is great. Also, Jorge Corona continuing to dominate that. Then we got The Domain, issue number 1. This is by Chip Zdarsky, Rachel Stote on the artwork. This is an interesting book. So if you read Public Domain, which recently just came back, Public Domain is about the battle between a writer and an artist over a very popular fictional comic book character, right? And it kind of gets resolved in some form or fashion at the end of the first arc. And now the second arc is about the artist who has fought for these rights to these characters trying to launch a new version of this book. And he's kind of going up against the modern ideas of storytelling versus his ideas of storytelling. And this is the book. This is the book that they're making. This is the revitalized, revamped, rebooted The Domain. So it's kind of meta, but it's also kind of cool. It worked. It wasn't the best comic out there. You're not going to read this book and just be like, whoa, that superhero comic blew my mind. I've never read anything like that. But it's cool to actually have the book that they're working on in the comic here in our hands to read. I don't know. It's just kind of a meta type thing that I really like. Then we got Geiger issue number 4, another book that could have easily been the pick of the week. This was a great one. So at the end of the last issue, Geiger's dog has been kidnapped by some villain. So that means that this issue is about a man after his dog. And it is crazy. The wrath, the vicious nature of Geiger being explored further here when he's a man on a mission after protecting something he loves. His dog, his creature, right? I love this. The artwork by Gary Frank continues to just be fantastic. The fight scenes in here, the coloring, especially the coloring of Geiger when he's powered up, it's just elevated. It's so freaking good. I'm loving Geiger. I have never not liked Geiger. And for the most part, I love everything that we're doing at Ghost Machine right now. In particular, everything connected to the Unnamed Universe. Then we got Ain't No Grave, issue number 3. I think this might be the best issue of Ain't No Grave yet. So it's about a woman back in an Old West type time. She finds out that she's dying. She's got a husband. She's got a kid. She doesn't want to leave them behind unprotected because she's the badass gunslinger of the family. So she goes to this mystical place to find death and somehow kill her way or cheat her way out of it, right? This is a great issue because it's developing more about her past, more about that character that she lies, she cheats, she steals. This is the exact opposite of her husband, and she's trying to do better, but sometimes she has to do what she has to do in order to do what she has to do, if that makes sense, or at least she thinks. So we're getting that explored a little bit more. The idea of gambling with one's life is explored a little bit here. I love it. And Jorge Corona on the artwork, a different style than his Transformers work, a different style than his work on the Me You Love in the Dark or even Middle West, but still distinctly Corona, but appropriate for this story. Really good job there. Falling in Love on the Path to Hell, issue number 2. Jerry Duggan with, who is this? Somebody Brown. Doodoo Brown? No, it's not Doodoo Brown. Why does some so stupid? The artwork is absolutely freaking cool. Visceral, raw, gritty, and textured in this one. So this is a book about a gunslinger in the Old West who is dying, and then over in, I think, Japan, maybe? I think it's Japan. I think there's like samurai warrior type stuff going on. Where are the credits in this damn book? I just don't want people thinking Doodoo Brown did this. I'm going to try to find the credits as I'm talking about this book, but there's somebody from the East, somebody from the West, and they wind up dying or almost dying and winding up in this island in the middle. Not Hawaii, but like purgatory. Really gnarly stuff right there. So this is them kind of learning the ropes of this new afterlife that they're a part of. Where are the credits to this book? I am missing them. Brown. What Brown? Doodoo Brown. Doodoo Brown. I don't think there are any credits in this book. Did y'all forget to put the credits in this book? I want to say Ryan Brown, but I don't know if that's Ryan Brown. I don't think it is. There are no credits in this book. What the hell's going on? Anyway, Jerry Duggan and Messua Brown, Anyway, but I like this book. I thought it was cool, and a cool establishing of the momentum established in issue number 1. Establishing of the momentum of the establishment. Then we got Monolith here with issue number 3, an interesting finale to this kind of origin of Monolith, how he winds up, where he winds up, how Omega Spawn's involved, how Plague Spawn's involved. I liked this issue the best out of all of them. I think it actually kind of tied it all up together. The artwork was decent, but for the most part, this was an alright book, but Monolith's never really been a character in recent Spawn issues that's really, like, captivated me too much, but I did think that this was a really cool encapsulation of what came in the previous 2 issues. Also, at your comic shop, you might find this. It is a Kaya, the story so far. It basically just, in black and white, in just a few pages, breaks down the story of Kaya for you. This is a book that we are all talking about as being one of the most underappreciated, undersung books on comic book shelves. We always talk about it on the weekly comic book review when it drops. We always talk about it on the monthly comic book review. It's a great book. This will get you caught up and ready for the new season, which starts in August. Just get the trade paperbacks. You may not be able to find this. Maybe your shop's not giving it away. Maybe your shop only got a couple. Maybe only got one. We did not get too many of these. I'm going to go give this to somebody who needs it as soon as I'm done with this. But read Kaya. Kaya is awesome. All right, over at Marvel, we have From the Ashes, A New Beginning. It's X-Men number 1, Jed MacKay, Ryan Stegman. It's a brand new era for the X-Men, a post-Krakoan era. Now, I know a lot of people have been really excited about this. I know a lot of people have been very trepidatious about this. I have been a little trepidatious, but also slightly excited because as much as I love the Krakoan era when it first started under Hickman's guidance, when Hickman was out, I feel like all the cohesion went out and I just could not get into it anymore, and I eventually stopped. And I would try to dive back in, and it just wasn't working for me. So I'm excited that we have this whole new wave of X-Men books. And with all the popularity right now of X-Men 97 and the upcoming Deadpool and Wolverine movie, this is a prime time. I cannot believe Marvel's actually synergistically working with what's going on right now, but there's X-Men hype right now. It's perfect time to launch a new X-Men. It's alright. It's alright. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it sucks. I think it's okay. I don't think it's Ryan Stegman's best work, but it's okay. It gets the job done. I don't mind the premise of the story. One thing that bothers me is that we're in a new age, new era, right? But we're picking up from the ramifications of the fall of Krakoa. We're still dealing with the fallout from Orcus and stuff like that. That's more of an epilogue-y, codish type thing to do, I think. Not necessarily like a new thing, but I don't know. It's interesting enough. It was all right. It didn't make me roll my eyes. There's some moments where I'm like, huh. It's an interesting team. Juggernaut, I wasn't sold on, but I really like the dynamic between him and Magic. Cyclops is fine in it. Beast is all right. Beast is all right, but Ryan Stegman, the way he's inking it, looks like he's wearing Kiss makeup. Psylocke's cool. She's not in a skimpy costume, but you know what? That's alright. That's alright. We can go back and read our Jim Lees if we want to. And Kid Omega's in it. So there was a piece of me that liked this. There was a piece of me that thought it was just kind of alright. So overall, I'd say it was okay. It was okay. Maybe not the X-Men number 1 that we want, but it was decent. It was decent. I thought it was decent. I think it's decent. Then we got Moon Knight, Fist of Khonshu, issue number 0. This may have dropped at your shop last week, may have dropped this week, may drop next week, may not drop at all. Depends on what your shop did. This was a surprise, unsolicited comic book. It deals with the fallout from the last issue of Blood Hunt. I don't want to spoil some things, but I don't know how I can actively explain this issue without spoil. Okay, there's a big thing that happened. A big thing. There's a thing that happened in Blood Hunt, the last issue, that was cool and a really great moment in that book. And now we have this surprise Moon Knight, Fist of Khonshu number 0 that is basically... It's basically retelling very briefly the story of Jed MacKay's Moon Knight run, who all the characters are and everything like that, so that if you don't understand or appreciate the moment that did happen in that last issue of Blood Hunt, this fills you in on that and also sets up what's to come. There is a new Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu book to arrive very soon, shortly after Blood Hunt wraps up, and this is kind of like your leadway there. Those shops didn't know this was coming and they had to order it immediately, but I think there were plenty available. Hopefully your shop should have it. I ordered it as soon as we could and we got it in this week, so there you go. Then we got Kid Venom issue number 1. There was the one-shot comic that was the collection of the digital stuff. Taigami is the writer-artist on this. It's got a very manga flair. It is set in another reality. It's about this kid. It's got the Venom symbiote. They're fighting these Oni. That's what they're calling the symbiotes here. They're back in Japan. It's alright. It was okay. It didn't really do anything for me. It may do something for you. If you're a big Venom fan, if you like that manga influence and interjection into the Marvel Universe, maybe check it out. But for me, it just didn't quite work or interest me, so I may kind of get out of it. But I feel like something was lost in translation there. Then we got Blood Hunt, The Incredible Hulk, issue number 1. This is a one-shot tie-in to Blood Hunt, but it didn't tie in really at all. This is just the next issue of Hulk. It's written by Philip Kennedy Johnson. It's got decent artwork by Danny Earls. It's a nice self-contained one-shot story, slightly involving vampires, but honestly, this doesn't even have to be a Blood Hunt tie-in. In fact, it almost feels like it wasn't. And then they were like, yo, change that to vampires, and let's call it a Blood Hunt tie-in. So if you're getting all the Blood Hunt tie-ins, I guess you're going to want to pick this one up. Nothing necessary to the main title, but that's fine. But it is a good, solid issue of Hulk. So if you are reading Hulk, though, I would suggest that you pick this up. It's not... I don't think you're going to miss out on anything, but if you're liking what Philip Kennedy Johnson is doing in the pages of Hulk, this is the next issue, basically. It really is, so check it out. Then we got Star Wars Ahsoka, issue number 1, written by Rodney Barnes. This, I believe, is an adaptation of the Ahsoka show, which I haven't watched yet, so I didn't read this. But I just wanted you to know that it was here. Ahsoka. All right, then we've got The Ultimates, issue number 2, from Dennis Camp. Freaking awesome. This was even better than issue number 1. I loved issue number 1, but this is even better. Juan Frigeri on the artwork, Federico Blee on the coloring. This is cool. This is Captain America and the Ultimates storming the White House. Who is occupying the White House is a really cool callback to an undersung Grant Morrison Marvel book, which I really like. Dennis, good job there. That was really cool. No, I love this issue, though. You find out the history of America in this new Ultimate Universe, and just some of the ideas that are being played around here is awesome. It's a very simple story where they just go into the White House, confront somebody, find something, but it all ties together thematically. It all is exciting. It's all great superhero type stuff, but it's also a little bit deeper than that, and that's what I appreciate, and I love those deep, underappreciated Grant Morrison Marvel book pulls that you're giving us, Dennis. This was great. This is amazing. I'm really, really digging this book. All right. Annihilation 2099 number 2. This does not continue the story from issue number 1. There's a slight bit that's continuing from that with the Dracula 2099 stuff. That's fine, but... So the first issue let us know who the Nova of 2099 is. This story is telling us about the Star-Lord of 2099. Also the Quasar. Interesting take on Quasar. That being said, it was an alright story. It's a decent enough one-shot. It seems like this is going to be a series of one-shot introducing 2099 versions of cosmic Marvel heroes, and then tying it all together at the end with some kind of Dracula thing, I guess, is what it seems like. I think it's actually going to work in its benefit for me, because when I read Steve Orlando stuff, I get into the first issue, and then I kind of fall out of it, right? Well, with these just kind of being one-shot stories, they're all like first issues a little bit. So I liked it. I thought it was decent. But I was really more excited to find out more about the Nova of 2099, because his real identity was pretty wild and interesting. So, I don't know. I'm digging it. I'm digging it. It's all right. Ghost Rider Final Vengeance, issue number 5, is not a good book, but it is a book I enjoyed. You could say like a guilty pleasure type way, but there's nothing guilty about it. But I'm reading this one and I'm like, you know what? This is just so... and maybe I should just stop reading it. Then I get to the end of this book and I'm like, oh, I gotta see where we're going from here. Like I said, it's not good, but I like it. Is that a fair enough review? Then we've got Get Fury here with issue number 3, and I'm going to give that the cover of the week right there. Dave Johnson, I love his work. Very striking, very graphic. It pops out on the page. And if you are lamenting that you don't have a Punisher book, you do. It's called Get Fury, and it's kind of like a sequel of sorts to Punisher Born, which is my favorite Punisher of all time. It's written by Garth Ennis. When I met Garth Ennis last year, he told me, because I told him Punisher Born is like one of my favorite Punisher books, right? And he goes, well, I'm working on a sequel of sorts, and that's what this is. Fury gets captured in the Vietnam War, and the government is afraid that he's going to spill the beans on some stuff, or maybe there's something else going on there, and they want him taken out. So they send Frank Castle in there. Frank ain't going to do anything that he doesn't think is right in his book. You got some great Punisher moments in this, some really great Garth Ennis-isms as well. I really liked it. It's not about the shock. It's not about the humor like we can sometimes be accustomed to with Garth Ennis. This is more about the sense of dread, the sense of foreboding, and getting into the character of the Punisher, but you can't get too far into him. Garth can't. You know what I'm saying? Because Garth, then it gets too sappy. This is just great stuff. This is Garth Ennis Punisher and Fury, and it works. It works. Let's jump over to DC. And from DC, we have Absolute Power Task Force 7, issue number 1. So this is going to be a mini-series focusing in on... So the basic premise of Absolute Power is that Amanda Waller has depowered all of the heroes and placed their powers in a Justice League of her own filled with Amazo robots, right? So this one is about the Superman Amazo robot hunting down the Shazam family. Captain Marvel, Mary Marvel, all of them, right? So that's what this is, but it's not super essential, but it doesn't have to be. But at the same time, it doesn't feel meaningless. It doesn't feel like a book just as an excuse to put a book out with the tie-in name. Like, this is the way I like these event crossover things to be, where you don't have to read this to understand what's happening in Absolute Power. But when you read this, you see other things that happen around the same time that actually have bearing on the story. Not just something like, oh, let's just throw a vampire in this and call it a blood hunt tie-in or something like that, right? So, I don't know, I liked it. It was decent. It was solid. When I saw that it was Leah Williams writing it, I got nervous. I don't typically like her stuff, but I thought this was a fine enough issue. It was good. It's just a kind of a self-contained story. It's going to lead into other things. One annoying thing is it references events in Wonder Woman number 11, which hasn't dropped yet. It drops next week, so that's kind of annoying, but you know what? Whatever. But it was all right. It was cool, and it's doing what I like events to do. So far, every Absolute Power tie-in has actually felt not necessary to your understanding, but very much involved. More involved in the thread of the main event than, say, even like the Blood Hunt ones or previous things that have come about, like even the Lazarus Rising stuff that they did, or when Marvel did Empire, things like that. So, I don't know. I thought it was all right. Then we got Green Lantern here with issue number 13. Absolute Power tie-in. I liked this issue. Why? Because I love Green Lantern right now. Jeremy Adams is doing a fantastic job. And then you got Pasarin on the artwork. I really love Fernando's artwork here. I've loved his work at DC for years now. But very solid, detailed, realistic looking artwork, even in the midst of superheroics, right? And it is a tie-in to Absolute Power, but at the same time is bringing to fruition things that have already been laid out in the pages of this book for the previous 12 issues. So it doesn't feel like it's derailing the story, but it feels like an organic part of the story. Everything that Hal's been dealing with the United Planets in this book, it is all somehow in some form or fashion connected to Amanda Waller. So when you have this tie-in, it feels earned, it feels organic, it doesn't feel out of nowhere. So far, I really think DC's been doing a great job with these tie-ins, which means that there's more of a plan, and we can definitely tell you there's been a plan building up to Absolute Power for over a year now. Ever since Dark Crisis ended, this is what's been led into, and it's been building up to it methodically and at a great pace, and it's all being earned and paying off now, and that's really cool. Then we have from the DC Vault, Death in the Family, Robin Lives. This is J.M. DeMatteis, Rick Leonardi, I believe. Yeah, Rick Leonardi, and Rico Renzi on the coloring, which is really cool. Very gnarly, gritty artwork, very Klaus Janson-esque, and I do like that and appreciate it. It's got this raw kind of edge to it. But what this is it's like a what-if scenario. What if Robin lived? Not too long ago, they put out that facsimile of Batman 428, The Death of Jason Todd or whatever, but it showed the pages in it that we never got to see. If they would have voted, fans, if we would have voted for him to live, he would have lived. This is possibly what would have happened. And it's an interesting, cool exploration on Jason Todd and the trauma that that event would have, like being nearly beaten to death, would have on him. So I liked it. I thought it was solid. I thought it was cool. And if you liked the idea of that Robin Lives book, like, this is the next logical step. Let's see what happens in the reality where he got beat nearly to death but didn't die. How does he deal with it? What are the ramifications of that? Do things go better? Do they go sour? Do they go worse? You got to find out by reading that. All right, then we got Action Comics 1067. Now that the House of Brainiac is over, Josh Williamson is back solely on Superman, and Action Comics goes back now into the Superman Superstars, where the idea is to bring in big-name creators to tell single Superman stories, like maybe like 3 or 4 issue arcs or something like that, and then a new writer and artist will come in. This one is Gail Simone and Eddie Barrows, and it's all right. It's set in Superman's early days. It's a silly, run-of-the-mill, old-school type Superman story. It's decent. It's cool. If you got like nostalgia for like older eras of Superman, in particular like the 70s or the 80s, whenever he's doing like the GBS stuff, right? You might like it, but it didn't really super work for me. It was just all right, and no pun intended on that super work thing. But it didn't really work for me. I thought it was just all right. It's like been there, done that. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But you calling this Superman Superstars? I want something big, right? Like when Jason Aaron did his first issue, that was cool. That felt almost game-changing. But then the story didn't really quite deliver on the promise set up in the first issue. We'll see what happens here, how it irons out. I don't know. It's all right. Then we got Batman and Robin issue number 11. What a fantastic issue of Batman and Robin. This might be my favorite issue so far. One of the things I haven't really liked about this book has been the inconsistency in the art. I like it when Simone DeMeo is on the art, but they're not able to do all the pages. And so sometimes not even a whole issue, or not even like sometimes just a few pages in the issue, and it makes this weird inconsistency, right? But now that the Man-Bat story is over, we are now just got one artist on this book, at least for this issue. It's Juan Ferreira, who I'm a huge fan of, writing and coloring, and it is majestic. Great layouts, a great sense of dynamic action and flow and pacing, and super dynamic. It's just absolutely a joy. But this is Batman and Robin going to Dinosaur Island because they found out that Bane is in fact alive. And Josh Williamson writes a really cool Bane, and Bane on Dinosaur Island, kind of running it, is pretty dope, and the artwork is great. Let me show you a Bane bit. Oh, that's a good one. I don't want to show you that one, though. But yeah, Bane Fighting Dinosaurs, y'all, by Juan Ferreira. I mean, right? That should sell you right there. All right, then we got The Outsiders, issue number 9. This is an issue of The Outsiders that's really, once again, explaining a lot about Chiquita, how she came over from the Wildstorm universe, how this is connected to Planetary, and also taking some of those themes and applying it more into the DC universe. I like some of the themes they're being played with. This was a solid enough issue. Now, we are 9 issues in. I think there's only one more issue of The Outsiders, maybe 2 or 3. I think there's only one more. But it's not Planetary, but I really do appreciate how delicate it is by taking some of the threads from Planetary and playing with them in the DC universe. I'm enjoying this book. I think it's a little up and down at times, but for the most part, it's been solid. 9 issues in, I'm still liking it. Planetary sequel, not as good as Planetary, but few comics are. Then we got Batman, Gotham by Gaslight, the Kryptonian Age, issue number 2. I was really surprised how much I loved issue number 1. I'm just as surprised how much I love issue number 2. This was great. Really solid stuff. First of all, Andy Diggle, able to play in this world that Mike Mignola, Brian Augustin, and P. Craig Russell helped develop in the original Gotham by Gaslight, which was basically Batman versus Jack the Ripper. This is trying to widen out that world a little bit, introduce other heroes. Obviously, it's called the Kryptonian Age, but even other heroes are being introduced, and other villains, other connections to Batman's world. They're basically enlarging the scope and making this a full-fledged world-building affair, right? Some really interesting ideas are being played with here. The mystery, it feels very Mignola-esque, even though Mignola's not a part of this. Andy Diggle does a great job of keeping that vibe and flow the same. But then you got Leandro Fernandez, who is just so freaking masterful at storytelling. The storytelling in this book is top-notch. The line work may not be quite your style, but man, it is for me, and you cannot deny the ability of this artist to tell a story and also to sequence an action scene. And look at those beautiful and bold colors from Dave Stewart, who's just one of the best colorists that we've ever had in this industry. I was really pleased with this. Seems like DC's really trying to put some shine on some Elseworlds stuff right now, and it's working for me. From Dark Horse, we got Kill All Immortals issue number 1. This is from Zach Kaplan with artwork by, Fico? Yeah, Fico Ocio, colors by Thiago Roca, and Hassan Osman El Hal on the lettering. Dude is super freaking busy. So Kill All Immortals is about this family of immortals, and now they're this opposing force against them. Meanwhile, it's the story of this woman and her current boyfriend. Let's call him that, right? Current boyfriend. They get wrapped up into this world. I love the way that the story is delivered here. Even though it's obvious what's happening, the steps to get to the revelations don't feel like they're spoon-feeding you or anything like that. Plus, there are some really brutally violent bits in this book that I thought were awesome. So I had a lot of fun with this. Definitely something to keep your eye on, see how it develops. Dawn Runner issue number 4 is here. I believe this is the penultimate issue of Rom V. And is it Evan Kagel? Yeah, Evan Kagel. This is their big mech kaiju story that has some really great concepts behind it and really solid artwork that at times I have slightly criticized it for not showing the full scope of everything, but you really get it here. I think it's solidified as far as that goes. You see the scale of everything, especially the devastation. The mechs look big. They don't feel cluttered in within the art, and the story is really developing out. Like, when you first start reading this book, you're like, what's separating this from other kaiju versus big mech robot stories? Well, there's a lot of ideas that are separating it and a lot of philosophy that they're throwing in there as well. Rom V does that very, very well by also keeping it super exciting, and Keiko's artwork is key to that. You got really solid coloring too from, I think that's Francisco Segala, and yeah, top-notch lettering. Top-notch lettering from Aditya Bidikar. Yeah, he is the colorist, Segala. Really cool book, and I'm liking it more and more as we go. Another book I'm liking more and more as I go is Morningstar. Morningstar issue number 4. This book took a couple issues to really kind of get me wrapped up into the mystery, but see, I trust D.B. Andre and I trust Tim Daniel, so I was on board, but Marco Finnegan's artwork is really selling me, and the coloring. Who's doing the Jason Wordy? Of course this is Jason Wordy. Jason Wordy is an amazing colorist. His use of color here is top-notch, and his coloring with the line work from Finnegan, it gives it a very 80s VHS horror movie type feel to me that I really do vibe with and click with. We still don't really know what's going on in this vintage sci-fi inspired type book, but I care about these characters and I'm more intrigued by their journey than I am the mystery, and that's something that's really been building in this book. So this is issue number 4. I believe we got one more after this. Then we got Profane issue number 2 from Pete Milligan, Raul Fernandez, Giada Marchisio. I like this book. I thought issue number 2 was pretty solid. This is about a private detective in a fiction book who finds out that his creator, his writer, has been murdered in the real world, and now he's trying to solve the case of the murder of his creator, because now he's worried that his fate's up in the air now, because he has no writer, or something like that, right? But Pete Milligan is playing with some interesting things. Now, this is similar to things like Bang. I know, you can think of, there's been stories like this, right? But the way that Pete Milligan is playing with how the real world and the fiction world are tied together, and some of the near ceremonial magical things you have to do to make that connection is really interesting, really appealing, and I'm really digging this main character, liking it a lot. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 40th anniversary comic celebration. This is a big, giant celebration of all things Turtle. The Turtles are celebrating their 40th anniversary this year, and in here we have stories set in the Mirage days, we have stories set in the cartoon world, we have stories set during the IDW series, we got stories set in the early 2000s series, right? So whatever your flavor of Turtles is, it's represented here, and if you love seeing the journey from the original comics all the way through to the latest comics and the latest animated series and movies, you're going to appreciate that. Oh, they should have totally done one set in the movie. I don't think they did. Okay, I'll be honest. I didn't read every single story in here yet. So maybe one is set in. That one looks like it might be. I don't know. It doesn't matter. What really excited me was the Kevin Eastman story in here. Because you know me, I love me some Kevin Eastman art. I really do. He's all super cool dude. So that story was worth it. I did flip through the rest. I didn't read everything. I read all the stuff set in the Mirage days. So there's a Jim Lawson story that was pretty dope. Yeah, I didn't read everything though. But it's cool. But you get all flavors of Turtles represented there. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. It's $12. It's really big. It's really big. All right. Cool cover, too. That's actually Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman doing that cover. So that's almost cover of the week worthy. All right, then we got The Savage Sword of Conan, issue number 3. This book slaps. This book is so freaking awesome. Issue 1 was great. Issue 2 was okay. Issue 2 was great. It just didn't have as much bang for your buck as the first one did. All that's back here in issue number 3. You get a main story by Frank Thierry with Gary Nord artwork, which is awesome. And it's Conan versus werewolves is what it is. And it works. The printing is better than issue number 1. Not quite as solid as issue number 2, but it works. It's a nice, solid Conan story, one and done. You know, I tried to read Conan books. When I was a kid, I used to read Savage Sword of Conan, and I loved it. But, you know, I haven't been able to get into a lot of modern Conan books, and I think, you know, now, well, the new Conan the Barbarian by Jim Zub is really, really good. It's really freaking good, okay? But I think I like Conan better in these big, longer, self-contained stories, right? Like just being able to pick up this magazine, read a self-contained full Conan story that's more than just 20 pages, that rocks. And it's rocked in all 3 issues of this. But then after that, you get an excerpt from the new Conan City of the Dead book with a great cover right there by Jeffrey Allen Love. Then we get the Solomon Kane story by Patch Zurcher. So we get the 3rd part of that, and it was cool. And then we get a little poem and an image right there, a poem by Jim Zub and Rob De La Torre. And then you get an Alan Quah silent story. So plenty of bang for your buck here. And yes, the smell of the week, slightly sweet, but slightly tangy as well. That's what I expect the world of Conan to smell and taste like. Anyway, Savage Sword of Conan, issue number 3 was awesome. And I want to give a special shout out to the Cobra Commander trade paperback is here. If you've missed out on the Energon universe, if you've missed out on the Joe stuff, you can't find it. You have no excuse. They've done like a billion printings of all these things. However, if you prefer the trade paperback form, here it is. This is the full Cobra Commander series, which was horror influenced, really elevates Cobra Commander to a genuine threat and not just kind of cowardly force that you don't understand why Cobra's following him or why the Joes are terrified or why we should be scared of him. You get that here in these pages. Great artwork, too, by Andrea Milana. Fantastic stuff. It's out in trade paperback right now. So now you got Transformers Book 1, Void Rivals Book 1, Cobra Commander, and Duke in trade paperback. The Energon universe is where it's at. So let's recap. Savage Sword of Conan, a sickly, sweet, tangy smell for the smell of the week, but also just a super solid issue with a lot of bang for your buck. TMNT 40th anniversary. It's got some cool Mirage stuff. The other stuff I didn't read, but it's all this. At least I let you know, right? I'll let you know if I don't actually read the whole thing. There you go. I didn't read the Solomon Kane book and story in the Savage Sword of Conan either. Sorry to disappoint you. Profane issue number 2. I'm liking this character. I'm liking the approach to this story. Morningstar is more interesting each and every single issue. So is Dawn Runner. The characters drive this. The concepts drive that. It all works together for me. Kill All Immortals was a really solid debut. Very much a book to keep an eye for because it's a cool concept and it was executed very well. Batman Gotham by Gaslight, the Kryptonian Age, was really, really good. Outsiders has been solid and decent and consistent, kind of. Batman and Robin issue number 11, the best one yet. Juan Ferreira drawing Bane fighting dinosaurs. Come on. Action Comics 1067. Gail Simone comes in and kind of falls a little bit flat in my opinion. Then we got Death in the Family. Robin lived. What if Jason Todd lived? What would that world be like? Find out in those pages. Green Lantern number 13, that's how you do a tie-in, elevating and building up and paying off stuff that you've been building up in your own book, but also feeling very naturally and organically involved in the Absolute Power. Task Force 7, it's all right, not completely necessary, but it does widen a little bit of the scale of the event. Get Fury gets the cover of the week by Dave Johnson. Just some great Punisher by Garth Ennis action right there. Then we got Ghost Rider Final Vengeance. Not good, but I like it. Then we got Annihilation 2099. 2099 Star-Lord. It's pretty cool, solid issue right there. The Ultimates, better than issue number 1. Some really great stuff in the pages of the Ultimates. Star Wars Ahsoka. Didn't read it, but it's an adaptation of the TV show. Should I read that? Should I watch that show? I watched Mandalorian season 1 and 2, and I liked them, but I fell out. I never went back. Should I watch those like Mandalorian season 3 and Ahsoka? You let me know. Blood Hunt the Incredible Hulks is just the next issue of Hulk, so if you're a Hulk fan, read that. Kid Venom didn't do it for me, but if you want a manga influenced take on a different Venom, go for it. Go for it, right? Moon Knight, Fist of Khonshu, number 0. If your shop doesn't have it, ask for it. Maybe they forgot to order it. X-Men number 1, not quite the new beginning I was wanting, but it didn't suck, in my opinion. I thought it was alright. Kaya, read Kaya. Read it. Monolith actually had a really solid ending for a book that I thought was just okay. Falling in Love on the Path to Hell, issue number 2, solidifies and helps establish what was established in the first issue. Yeah, I said that. Ain't No Grave, issue number 3. I thought this was the best issue of this series yet, diving deeper into those characters, diving deeper into the conceit of the book. Then we got Geiger, issue number 4, a man on a mission to help his dog. Stay out of his way. Really great action-heavy issue right there. The Domain, the book within the book of Chip Zdarsky's Public Domain. I kind of like that. It's not going to blow you away. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody unless you really like Public Domain. How about that? Transformers, issue number 10. Another fantastic issue. God. Ice Cream Man number 40. Another fantastic issue, continuing the themes established in the previous issue, but from a slightly different perspective. Not just from characters' perspectives, but a tonal perspective. But Precious Metal, issue number 2, Darcy Van Polgees, Ian Bertram, Ben Dyer on the design, Hassan Osman El Howe, Matt Hollingsworth on the coloring. This book is peak level comics, and it's the pick of the week. Anyway, that's what I read. That's what I thought. That's what I'm digging. What are you reading? What are you thinking? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Be sure to join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support the channel. And go to cbcawards.org and vote and nominate PCP or any of your favorite comic YouTube channels for all the categories, including Best Comic Book Review, Best Ongoing Series for the Weekly Comic Book Review, Best Collaboration for the Monthly Comic Book Review, Channel of the Year, Favorite Channel, Best Hands, as well as the new category, Best Live Chat involving the chat live stream, Rockin' Robbie Live. We'd love to win that one, or at least be nominated. It's an honor just to be nominated. We want to win it. Anyway, thank you all so much for checking out the video. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. I already said all that stuff, didn't I? Yeah, now it's just time for me to go. I've been Rockin' Robbie. Thanks for rocking with us. Station, keep on reading. Pop, pop, boom!